Welcome to Yoga Teacher Journeys, your podcast for all things yoga and mindful living. I'm Claire.
And I'm Bianca, and we're two yoga teachers sharing the insights and wisdom we've picked up along our journey so far.
Whether you're thinking about teacher training or exploring yoga as a way of life, join us weekly for inspiring conversations.
Let's go on this journey together.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is episode number 22, isn't it?
It is episode 22. Very exciting.
And yeah, I'm so excited because today we've got a guest on, the amazing Krissi. And Krissi's been on the yoga path for years and years and years and years and years. And she's going to share some of her wonderful wisdom with you. But yeah, we crossed paths last year in Thailand, and it was something. As soon as I saw Krissi, I was like, that energy. I need that energy in my life. I think that's what I was like. Wow. I remember the first time I met you at Suwansati, it was like, yeah, there was something about your vibe that I was really drawn in by. And since then, Krissi and I have worked together. We did like a mentorship program. We've been on retreat together. We've done workshops in London. Like we've really traveled around the world together. But we're so lucky to have you here, Krissi, to share some of your knowledge and your wisdom and your love. And we can't wait to share this with our listeners as well, because you've been on the path for probably 10 years longer than we have, right? So we're still very new. So just to have this other perspective, I think is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I think also I think you've definitely seen a shift, within my own teaching. Even at Sawansati, it was one of the first gigs that I got at a retreat, which was very, very well paid and well looked after. Again, when we're talking about this world and how to embody practicing, living and making a living out of what you love, let's say, there is a very fine line of how much to serve without actually feeling undervalued, not worth it, your experience, all of these go into perspective, let's say. So at Sawansati, I still feel when I look back, even though it was only like a year ago, so much growth in just like that amount of time. And then obviously Goa, we had some hiccups towards the end of the retreat with the boat and everything. So you've really seen this journey throughout myself. And what I find the most beautiful is that your people will find you, and with the vibe and the community of yoga growing, we all know how easy it is to become a yoga teacher now. You go to India, you can do yoga teacher training for 300 euros. Everybody can pop up and do a teacher training, but to actually stick with the teacher and to see their growth as well is something that I massively value from my students. Because if it wasn't for you guys, like when we did the mentorship also, I just came back to London. You really gave me purpose during that time, and we was doing it every day pretty much. So yeah, what a journey. What a journey.
Crazy journey. So no, we're so grateful to have you on the pod, and we just thought it would be a great time just to get your perspective on the yoga life, really the journey of becoming a yoga teacher and how your journey has evolved in the last 10 years. And we've got we've got Claire here too. I suppose this is it. We've got three very different perspectives on the same thing, right? Because Claire being in Geneva, that's totally different vibe.
Definitely. Yeah, how is it there? How's the yoga community there? How are you feeling with it? I've never been to Switzerland.
Well, I think it's different. It's growing, but I think there's different aspects to it. So you've got the side of yoga, for example. So I'm teaching at the David Lloyd's Country Club, and in there, the yoga is kind of seen more as this is our chill out moment after we've done an intense workout during the week, and we want something a bit more relaxing. We want to stretch. We just want to chill out. So that's one perspective. And so there's 24 people in the room there. I'm teaching in another studio. It's a small room, 6 people, but the studio itself is actually a reformer Pilates studio at heart. And their philosophy actually is very in line with mine and the yoga philosophy and their approach to reformer Pilates. Actually, that's how they try and differentiate. But it's not, again, the purpose is not yoga per se. So it's kind of like they've got this other room but they want to do small groups. And so they want students to get a lot of attention there. So what's great there is that I've only got 6 students. We've got time to really go into each asana to make it more personalized to each student. But again, their approach to it is they're quite new. They're just discovering yoga. And then the last studio is a little bit bigger, a little bit in between. But again, their purpose, there wasn't yoga initially. They're more a Pilates bar studio. So the actual yoga type studios, there's one main one, And then another one that's maybe a little bit more spiritual that I've explored, but there's not like that many. And in terms of community, I haven't found really a strong community base, I would say.
When
So,
you are making one, I feel like you are the community, you're building it.
well, I'm my community. I'm building my own community.
I love that.
But
Yeah,
yes,
right, we need it. And sometimes, because I think when I was traveling, I was like, the thing that I'm missing is community. But if I want that, you have to make it yourself.
I have. And
I got a message yesterday, actually. A friend in London messaged me yesterday on Instagram and asked, where can I find community-based yoga in Nepal or India? And it's like, well, what does community mean? You know, like what do you want to get from community? Because I've been in spaces where it's labeled as community and I felt very unsafe in those spaces. Whereas just being with my teacher and being in a small contained setting or a studio, when I think of Indaba in London, that to me is community, that is home. Whereas sometimes I've been on workshops and retreats where it's been gathered as a community and I don't feel the type of community. But what Claire's saying also about the gyms, for example, is from my experience, that is where you're going to find real community, because in studios and whatever, chances are your clientele and the students are going to be coming in because this word yoga clicks something in their mind and they think, okay, stretching, spirituality, for example. It's usually the gateway, right? Whereas in gyms, many people come with a very close-minded concept. And yeah, they can come and they have this idea that, oh, it's just going to be a bit of gentle stretching or whatever. And then actually, when you take them on the journey through the layers and you peel it back through the meditation, the pranayama, they probably wouldn't even know any of this existed or it was part of yoga. Then they start coming back. You know, I was working in a gym, very, very underpaid. It took me almost 2 hours to get there. I was teaching there for a good 4 years. And people used to say to me, why do you keep going? It takes you so long. They don't pay you very well. And it was like, because this, to me, is what is community. It was a lot older. The population of the students was a lot older. So there was a rate of injuries. Some people had to use chairs. So it broadened my perspective of how do I tailor this class to suit these individuals? And also they were just in it together, you know, they would be cheering each other on. They'd all be waiting outside the class when they've been swimming or doing their body pump or whatever. And there was just so much love in that space, so much love. And if I think back to any class that I miss the most, it's that class, because we grew together. Those students came with me to workshops, events, and yeah, they still support me from afar, even after all of these years. So I think those classes is where you're going to get the most out of your teaching. Actually, a lot of experience is going to come, and a lot of devoted students, because they probably would have never experienced a yoga teacher before either. So you are that first person to give them the insight to deeper connection with themselves, body, mind, and spirit, which not a lot of people talk about the spiritual side of things. Some places in London, wow, many places refuse for you to talk Sanskrit in the class. And that is cultural appropriation because they want to make it accessible. But then you're cutting out a huge chunk of what the practice is. So, you know, I think these spaces is actually a very beautiful place to be. And yeah, an exciting journey ahead lies for you.
that's an amazing perspective. I hadn't thought of it that way. So yeah, definitely changed my perspective on it.
Especially David Lloyd's. You was teaching in David Lloyd's also, no?
Yeah,
How was that?
We're both kind of things happening at the same time. We're both in at David Lloyd at the same time. Like it's just, yeah, we're in flow, which is amazing. It's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how, Krissi, how would you say, so if you think back like 10 years, because I know you've said like in the last year, I've obviously seen the journey that you've been on in the last year being your student, but 10 years ago, how has your practice like evolved over the decade? It's been 10 years, right?
I've been practicing now 11 and a half years. Yeah. So yeah, I think I came into it I remember it very clearly when I first started practicing. I was in a long-term relationship and we was teenagers, you know, and one night, the night before, we had just bought like £30 worth of crap, you know, crisps, Doritos, sweets, whatever. And we was just in bed, like in my mum's 4-bedroom house with my 3 brothers, my sister screaming around, 3 dogs, the parrot, my mum shouting, you know, it was a very hectic household. And my room, the bed filled most of the room. You know, there was just a small alleyway that you could just walk around the bed. And I woke up the next morning and the curtains was open, but with just one strip of light coming through. And I woke up and it must have been maybe 11 o'clock or something, you know, quite late in the afternoon. For me now, this is very late. And there was one strip of light coming through. And I remember waking up feeling very sweaty and just really disgusted with myself, like feeling like I didn't have any spirit. And I was looking around at all of these crisp packets just lying on the floor. And the TV had that, you know, the static air when you can see all of the dust coming from the TV. And my boyfriend at the time was just like lay in bed, sprawled out. And I just rolled over and I was just like, oh, I just felt like no spirit. And I rolled out of bed and my phone was on the floor. And I don't know what happened. I just rolled out and I started to search. I just Googled searched yoga classes near me. And I'm from a very small town, but now it's evolving. But at the time it was quite small. And there was only one yoga studio in the whole town. And it was called Hot Buddha. And I didn't realize that hot yoga was a thing. So I just thought it was the name of the studio. So I went into this Hot Buddha and I just turned 18 and they was quite strict with age. You wasn't allowed to go if you was not 18, obviously because of the heat and whatever. And yeah, I just remember walking into this studio and there was this woman in the corner of the studio that was laying on the floor. And I was like, fuck, it's warm in here, you know? And I just went up to her and I said, excuse me, they're going to turn the heating down, aren't they? And she was like, no, it's hot yoga. And I was just like, I have no idea what that is. And it was Ashtanga too. So yeah, that was my first yoga class. And honestly, I don't know why I kept going because I hated it. There was so much pain. I used to stare at the clock on the wall thinking, oh my God, like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. But there was something, especially I used to cycle there as well. And my mum always used to comment when I got home, like, oh my God, you know, my face so red and whatever. And I really don't know why I kept going back, except now when I look back, it was definitely a communication with spirit telling me that there was something here that was going to heal me. And I never, ever, ever thought I would be a yoga teacher. I think it was about maybe 3 years into my practice when I started to show, you know, mainly family friends, like, oh, you should do this breathing exercise or maybe this twist. And it was my ex's mum at the time that said to me, oh, you need to go to India and you need to do your teacher training. And in my head, it was this 200 hours. And I thought it was 200 hours of asana. It's like, I can't go to India and do 200 hours of asana. Like, what the hell? But deep down, yeah, I think one particular thing that jumps out to me when I look back is a studio in Crouch End, which is still there now, called Three Tribes. It used to be called Yoga Centric in the day. And it was the first studio that I really felt was my shala. You know, they was very strict on silence in the studio, no talking, no phones, this type of business. One time after class, I was actually filming my practice after the class. And I didn't really like to film because I was aware of other people's practice, but I was just cautious, like curious rather. What does it look like? And then I got chatting to this woman after class and she told me that she did her teacher training and that she was a teacher. And I remember being in awe, you know, I was like, oh my gosh. But she told me that she wasn't teaching. And I said, why? Why are you not teaching? So when I look back on that, I think, wow, that was about maybe 9 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. But honestly, if you would have told me that I would have become a yoga teacher, never mind everything else that comes with that, like retreats and everything else, you know, workshops, teacher trainings, I probably would have laughed at you, if I'm honest with you. So yeah, it's been a journey of rediscovery for myself and realizing my own potential and the magic that lives within inside me, which I can pass to everybody else, which is such a gift to be able to do. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, you can feel it, Krissi. When I met you, there was this energy that you're like, you can see that she embodies the practice. And I was like, being a yoga teacher, this is how I want to show up. I want my students to feel when they're in my presence. It was an inspiration when I met you that time, for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because even yesterday I was doing this post on Instagram about discipline and boundaries, because when there's a title on our head, I don't even like to use the term yoga teacher. When people ask me, what do? I say I teach yoga. I think there's something about just the way that it's worded as well, because again, everyone's been a yoga teacher. And also with the patriarchy system as well, sometimes I do find that the practice is sexualized quite a lot, especially with women practicing. And I think there's always this expectation that you should be something. You've got this label on your head and you should be perceiving yourself as something, but actually we're in it too. The reason I show up is because I don't have much else. I don't have the money to go to all of this therapy and all of this every day. But what I do have is I have a yoga mat and I have my body and I have the strength within me to just show up. And some days it's messy, you know, some days it's very messy. And over the years of working in different spaces and holding space, I've had to learn quite the hard way on how to have boundaries with students as well. That's another big topic. I think all we can do is lead by example, and it's okay as well that we're in it with you. That's one thing I love about my teacher. He shows the real life. He was the first person that made me think, okay, we don't have to be sat on this pedestal and have all of our shit together. He openly talks about his struggles, his party life, his past life, and how yoga's evolved him. And I think that's one thing that I always just want to pass on, that whatever you see somebody advertising, you don't see the years of struggle as well, which is, yeah, really, really important.
Yeah, I think no one just gets into yoga, do they? You become like, yoga finds you, like you said, but you're not just a teacher of yoga for no reason. Same with you, Claire. Like,
Yeah.
you shared your journey before, like the reason you're here, there's been one hell of a journey to get here. And people come into your class, they don't necessarily need to know the whole story, but there's always a lot behind it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I actually wanted to pick up on what you said about boundaries with your students, even. And sometimes, obviously, students slash friendships, sometimes, especially as, for example, I experienced this in Budapest. I was trying to build up my own community there and students, but actually, I had to do it through meeting new people. And at first, that presents itself more perhaps as a friendship. And then those people might be interested to come into a class, but then those boundaries are really tricky, especially when there's money involved. Do you have any tips or any advice that things you've learned over the years?
It's an energy thing for sure. B, I would say, is a friend. And we have quite a professional friendship, I would say, as well, B. I think we're both very mature, which is a highlight. But naturally, what's going to happen is the more you teach, you're obviously going to draw this energy in, because like B has already highlighted, when she first met me, there was an energy about me. She was attracted, right? And it's the same when you're holding space. People will come to you after class all the time. They want questions. They want to hang out with you. They want to be seen with the teacher. They want to be seen with the teacher. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we have to make sure that, one, we are protecting ourselves, because we cannot hold space for everybody. And then the only thing I can say is intuition. Like every time that I have felt my intuition tell me something about a particular student, it's always been right. Years and years ago, I had a student who felt like she was crossing a lot of boundaries and she was not understanding where my energy was at, even though I was always giving the energy that I was not available at that time. Teaching 6 classes, it was a Monday class, 6 classes a day. It was when I would say midway into my career of learning all of this. And 9 o'clock, the class would finish, 9 p.m. And you know, when you're a new teacher, you have to travel a lot to get recognition, get experience. And yeah, it would take me about an hour and a half, 2 hours to get home. And she would always stop after class and try and chat and say, oh, do you want to go out? And do you want to do this? And no matter how much I said, I'm not available, it just wouldn't work. Like she would try and cross that boundary. And then a few months later, I was actually teaching at the same studio, but earlier on in the day. And it was a midday class, and then we ended up getting the tube together. And I kind of sensed it, that something was gonna happen. We became very good friends for many, many years, actually. And then, yeah, the friendship did not last. And then it was always that throwing in your face of, you're a yoga teacher, you should be doing this and you should be doing that, because you gave them access to parts of your life that actually they didn't need access to. So over the years now, I've learned to just put that wall there, that my personal practice and my private life, they're very separate. And who you choose to let into your private life, because if you have a friendship, chances are that is going to cross over a little bit. You just always have to be cautious. Yeah, you just have to be cautious, because there's always going to be, especially when you level up within the game as well, there's going to be haters. And there's going to be people there watching you and calling you out on your faults from years ago. And it's like, yo, I'm still here working through my karma. This is why I'm practicing. So that is one thing that you should be aware of. And if that does happen to you, which it has happened to me very recently, actually, some person from 4 or 5 years ago calling me out on things from years ago now because of a friendship. And it's like, it's evil eye, so you just have to be protective of yourself over evil eye. And yeah, not everybody's going to be in your best favor. And I would just say that it's not don't have friendship with students, because I've also developed many beautiful friendships with students over the years too. You just choose, how much does this person have access to my life? And the more you work on your spiritual practice, then the more your intuition will grow. So your intuition it can only align you with people that are within the same vibration as you. So if you're aligning with people that are, a little bit sly or whatever, subconsciously, maybe that's something inside of you that you also need to work on. Make sense?
Yes.
I'm not even sure if that even highlights any of the answers, but yeah, unfortunately, you do have to learn the hard way. And through the hard way is going to come haters. There's going to be people there that still see you through old lenses. And they do not see the inner work that you've done. Not everything that you're portraying on the internet or what you're showing to your audience is part of the work, because yoga and the asana side of it is just one snippet. But the inner work, the struggles that you face, the praying, the literal, asking for forgiveness, because we're human, we've made mistakes. Nobody sees any of that. So just be careful when you're choosing to pick friendships with students. And I would try and say, just put a boundary there. Yeah, just try and put a boundary there, because it probably will affect you at some point. If you grow, you will grow.
Yeah, I feel like the only way we know when to put a boundary in is when we've crossed a boundary. So quite often with these things, I think we've probably both experienced it in the year that we've been doing it. It's like, oh, that doesn't feel right. And then that's when you need to put the boundary in. You don't know where to put the boundary if you've never crossed it. So I think sometimes you feel that uncomfortable, be in that uncomfortable space and be like, actually, this isn't okay for me. And then with the amount of practice that we do and the way that we know ourselves, trust yourself. It all comes down to in the end, doesn't it?
Do you have any friendships with students, B? What's your experience like with that?
Yeah.
Because you're right, over just the last few months of watching you grow, wow, you have become a magnet, So yeah, what's your experience like?
To talk after class, don't they? Everyone wants to talk. And I can hang around for 15, 20 minutes and I'm like, it's okay sometimes, but it's my time. So I try, and only 5 minutes after class, I'll have a chat. But yeah, you do have to manage it, and you've got them all messaging you and things like that. And it's lovely, it's beautiful, but you do have to time and a place, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one thing that you can do, and one thing that I started to do was, especially late night classes, is say, if there's any questions or anything that you need to know, I'm here for the next 10, 15 minutes, come and grab me. And then after that, just be quite firm. But again, trial and error. It wasn't easy for me, especially in London. I really valued my students so much. There was parts of me that was quite lonely. So being in those spaces, my students were also healing me in so many retrospects. They gave me a purpose. So there was many times when I would stay after class for, wow, sometimes such a long time. And then I'd be like, what am I doing? So yeah, it's trial and error, but the more you learn to value yourself, it comes with some time, then the more they respect it, they get the message. And then if they want more information or they want more of your knowledge, let's say, then there's other times and places for that. Use it for your marketing and your advertising. Okay, guys, I've actually got a workshop on this topic in 2 weeks. Maybe it's beneficial for you to come to that.
Very true. So off the back of that, one piece of advice you'd give to a new yoga teacher?
In regards to what?
Anything you wish you'd known that someone maybe you would like, oh, I wish someone told me that. In regards to maybe even just the journey that you're going on, or just anything you need to know. If you could talk to Krissi 10 years ago or 11 years ago, what would you say to her?
I remember there was a teacher that many people looked up to. She had her classes literally booked out the week before. And it was like Glastonbury, And actually, I was going to her classes and I never felt seen by her. She looked like the ideal yogi. She'd been to India 1,000 times. She really had this wealth of knowledge. However, she wasn't quite good at giving that knowledge out with love. So I remember after the classes, she would really disregard me, let's say. And I'm talking about a time where I grew up on literally nothing. We had a very staple diet. There were 6 siblings, so we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't go on holiday. Dad was very Catholic. And we was the type of family that it's non-school uniform day and we didn't even have £1 to wear our own clothes. Do you know what I mean? So it would be embarrassing. Sometimes I'd have to skip school and just be out just because it would be embarrassing for me to go to school in my uniform whilst everybody else was wearing their own clothes. And that stayed with me at the start of my yoga journey. So I was wearing like Primark leggings with holes in and all of this. And this teacher, she really didn't make me feel welcome, let's say. But anyway, I still went to her classes because there was something, okay, she must be good if everyone's going. And then I went to one class in particular, and after the class, I simply asked her for a book recommendation. I said, hey, have you got any books that I can read to help deepen my knowledge? And she just looked at me and she said, I remember her face very clearly. And she just went, I just go to India. And I thought it was the shittiest advice that I ever received in my entire life. I was just like, okay, let me just pack up everything and just go to India. And that was the last time I ever went to her classes. So I would say if there was one piece of advice that I'd give to new teachers is just stay with your own practice. Yeah. The teacher is within inside of you, and all of your answers, all of your questions will be answered when you just get on the mat. You don't need to pay for it. You don't need to follow these trends of going to the best teachers or whatever like that. You just get on your mat every day, sit for a few minutes, move your body. And through that is when your energy and your vibration attracts. Because if you're working on one level, then the way yoga works with neuroscience is it does start to reconnect different parts of the brain. It generates new pathways for new patterns to be created and looking at traumas. But that does not happen with once a week yoga class. That will happen with regular practice. So if there's anything that I say to anybody is just stay on the mat and just devote yourself to the mat. It's hard at first, but just stay devoted, and then your people will find you. People will feel that, okay, this is somebody true. This is somebody that I can trust to give my money to lead me. And it's interesting. Everything will just come. We've spoke about this so many times, B. Everything will just come to you the more you practice. The more you practice.
Become the magnet, and then you don't have to worry about. We were talking about this last week, weren't we, Claire? It's just that you just keep going. You just have to trust. And the way that you do that is you just keep practicing yoga.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. Wow.
I suppose on that point, then you were saying just keep coming to the mat, but beyond the 200 hours, did you take some guided courses in your 10 years beyond that?
Yeah, I did my first original 200 hours with Yoga London, which was the best training I ever received. Lucy, our main mentor at the time. It was just amazing. Like, wow. She was very strict. People were scared of her. Everybody was scared of her. But she had this unconditional love. She loved us all individually, and she was very proud of us, regardless of our journey. And that was done over a 4-month period. So it was every weekend for 4 months. I did my first teacher training almost 7 years ago. And then I started teaching straight away. And then I actually had some mental health implications where I had to really take matters into my own hands, let's say, after I was rejected by the NHS. And I wasn't in this space where I wasn't feeling seen or heard. And I started to study more about yoga for PTSD, yoga for stress, anxiety. I also did an advanced training in Sanskrit and toddler yoga. I taught kids yoga for a few years. That was interesting. Then I did a second 200 hours, which was the worst 200 hours I ever received. It was more anatomical based, let's say. So focusing on handstands and all of this, which is not what I wanted or needed at the time. And then, yeah, my career just started to progress as the developmental stages of my own mind started to increase. And I was seeing the patterns and my own behaviors and my own toxic traits and whatever. I started to really go down my bloodline, let's say. And one big thing that hit me was we was out of touch with my uncle for many years. And then when we got back in touch with him, we found out that he was serving a 9-year prison sentence for armed robbery. And seeing the impact that this had on my family, especially my mum, just clicked something inside of me. And I started to realize who I was, where I had come from, what sort of people were in my family, let's say. And then my mindset just switched massively into yoga for rehabilitation. So then I studied yoga for prisons and yoga behind bars, which looked at adverse childhood trauma, PTSD, and all of this. So yeah, I would say primarily within the last 5 years, it's been more related to mental health with the discipline of Ashtanga. And yeah, teaching in India the last 2 years, it's mainly been Ashtanga based, but with that. And that discipline isn't because I hate you. It's because I know it works. And it's the one effective thing that we can use to rehabilitate ourselves, not only others, but yeah, ourselves. And if we work on ourselves, that's going to have a rippling effect on everybody else. So yeah, that's been like in a nutshell where I've been at. And when we talk about the conscious community and we talk about yoga in general and as it's rising, it's funny because everybody wants to teach, but nobody wants to teach for free. And I do not recommend you to teach for free at surf camps and all of this because, you know, you need to be valued. But when it comes to charities and when it comes to mental health and when it comes to organizations across the globe, I think there's one way that when we're looking back at our karma and our karmic debt is the reason karma and seva is part of the yoga is because that's a way to pay off your karmic debt. That's a way to pay off your sins so that you can be liberated. Does that make sense? Yeah. One thing that has been annoying me within the community and something I have to take a step back from is that with the Kenya Community Yoga Project, which you're familiar with, but Claire, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Long story short, I went to Kenya last year, was going there to volunteer. And then when I rocked up, there was nothing there. And then we started to set up yoga classes for the schools and the communities. And with donations, we started to build a shala. And a few months ago, I received an application from this guy in the US who clearly stated on an application form, which stated that it's a community project. And at the moment we're on donation, so we cannot pay. He clearly stated on the application form, I will not do this for free. Here is the wealth of knowledge and here is the wealth of my experience and I deserve to be paid for this. Okay, so you're only thinking about yourself and what you're getting out of it. There's a reason why we put this application. And again, if you do not want to pay off any of your karmic debt, then so be it. But I do not want to hire you. I do not want to hire anybody that is not seeing beyond this money concept, right? Because the more you pay off your debt, the more it's just going to keep coming back to you. The goodness is just going to come back to you. That's the law of attraction. That is manifestation. But people don't see it like this. And yeah, you see it on teacher trainings, karma yoga on the program, and everyone runs away. Oh, I want to go to the beach. I want to do this.
We didn't have karma yoga on our teacher training, did we?
We didn't actually know, but it was a very
Oh,
I don't know, in a way it was like we were in Thailand, but it was organized by Westerners, and it was a very structured. I chose it because it felt very structured, actually.
Very sure. Yeah, it was very.
But I think in that sense, no, not so much. I think it was if it was up to Santosh, maybe we would have had it a little bit more in that sense. I don't know, but so much more to explore, right? But you did some karma yoga,
The ashram.
yeah.
Karma yoga at the ashram. And again, like you said, Chrissy, there were so many people like, I don't want to do the bins. I don't want to do this. When you actually take part in karma yoga, there's a feeling about it, right? Because you're doing this is selfless, right? You're doing this for the community, and we're all helping each other out, and we need this. We all need each other.
yeah.
You can give it that way of not needing anything in return. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think my teacher, Stuart, if you do his teacher training, karma yoga is part of it. It's a 1-year training, and you have to do some sort of community service as part of it. And he wants to see evidence of it.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the real yoga. Just because you can do the asana or whatever, it doesn't make you a good person. What makes you a good person is by being a good person. You don't become a good yogi just because you can do all of this fancy stuff. You become a good yogi because you work hard. You recognize your behaviors, and you recognize, okay, where needs help in the world? What can I do? And I think one of the biggest tests is, even we can do this karma yoga, but then how magical would it be if nobody told anybody about the goodness that they were doing? Would you still do it if there was no phone there? Would you still do all of the inner work if there was no proof that you was doing the inner work? So you didn't have an audience. What would it look like then? But it seems that as soon as, oh, look, I donated all of this to the homeless or whatever, I must post it all over social media to get some recognition. And I'm talking about this in a very fine line, because I am doing this with the Kenya Community Yoga Project, but there's recognition that needs to be there, because how else are we going to get recognized? And I need volunteers. But when somebody keeps doing it for recognition, for nothing else, then the magic gets taken away. So I challenge you both to do something good for the community, and don't tell anyone about it. Just keep it. And wow.
You've definitely inspired me to do so, that's for sure. I was just thinking about where could I teach for free or do something in Geneva. I need to figure that one out.
Yeah, and I think
There's many charities. Yeah.
charity work.
Yeah. Like mental health, women who's dealing with domestic violence, homeless, refugees. In London, there was a company called Hestia, I do believe, and they were always advertising for yoga teachers for alcohol and drug misuse and all of this. That would come with training, of course. But yeah, you could definitely look into it. And that is where you was doing some of this when we was first working together, wasn't you?
Yeah, I did some work for the mental health charity in Milton Keynes, and I'm still in touch with them now. I'm actually thinking about putting some more sessions on for the guys there, actually. I've done quite a lot with the women, so I'm thinking now that the men, there needs to be some more yoga done there, I think. Yeah, for sure. And what you're saying, it's like bringing up in me, I think so often everything we do in life is transactional, isn't it? Like we do that because of this, we do that because of this. But actually, if we can do, it can be this unconditional, this pure love, right? If we think about karmic yoga, it's like we're just giving for, I think that's unconditional love, isn't it? When you just give in that way, that's,
Yeah.
I don't need anything in return. I'm just doing
Yeah.
it from my heart because that's just what I do.
And I'm speaking from a background of where I grew up very, very strict, and we was taught never to really look at even the homeless. We was taught that they were below us, let's say. Oh, don't give anything to them or whatever. They're probably on drugs or whatever. And it wasn't until a friend of mine, I started to witness them giving to the homeless. And at first I used to comment like, yo, you don't even have any money yourself. What are you doing? And I just realized the more I observed this friend, and they're still a very, very big part of my life. They taught me so much, big, big teacher. It's not all about the money, because if we're on that realm, it's quite a low dimensional level to be at. It's the only thing that's giving you any sort of pleasure is money, sex, or power, right? But when actually we step out of that realm and out of that dimension, then we actually realize that what gives us more satisfaction, more love, and more power is when we work more within our truth, when we work more within the heart space, and then it comes back to us tenfold. If we spend in the hope that it's going to return to us, it's not going to return to us. But if we give from the heart, then you become rich, whether that is money, whether that's love, whatever it is. If you just really love somebody, that's just going to come back to you, because that's how it works. This friend, I remember this conversation, I was like, yo, you don't even have any money, you're broke. It's like, yo, you can't think like that. I've got a house, I've got a roof, I've got food. They don't even have anything. Imagine if you had to sit on the tube and beg. How would you feel like it? And so I'm very, very blessed. Also, part of my journey has been luckily surrounding myself with a good community. And these people I can count on one hand. People will know you, but not many people will actually know who you are. I think that as part of our spiritual evolution and growth is understanding also that diet isn't just what you eat, but it is who you surround yourself with, and what are you watching, what are you reading, which constitutes towards your diet. So surround yourself with people that think like this, which inspire your growth and your relationship with source, because yeah, it's goes the other way otherwise.
I went to a Kirtan event actually on Friday at Om. My first time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and the whole theme was love. And the one thing that I take away from that, they said the highest form of love is being of service.
Yeah.
Okay? And
Yeah.
that's everything that we've spoken about here. It's how can we be the best version of us so we can be of service, because that's what we are as teachers of yoga, is that we're of service, right? So yeah, it's a tough path to choose because it's confronting. You have to work through all your stuff, and like you say, it's not all light and love. It's very dark sometimes, and it's really, really hard. But the world needs more of this. The world needs more of you, Krissi, and we're glad that we're on the journey as well with you.
Oh, we're all in it together, and definitely been on the road as well. And Claire, whilst you're traveling and you're finding your feet, the best thing about traveling is that you do make these beautiful connections, and you don't need a classroom. Going right back to the start of the conversation, okay, this studio has 26 mats and this studio has 6 or whatever. You don't even need a classroom that's full of that. It does not define your worth as a teacher how many students that you have in a classroom. What defines yourself as a teacher is your authenticity and your ability to just show up. But also, Radhika, many, many years ago, he was my first spiritual teacher. I remember going to him after Om one time and saying, because Bhakti yoga, which is where Kirtan originates from, is one of the highest forms of yoga, or the highest form of yoga that you can practice. And it was Bhakti yoga that first allowed women to practice yoga as well. Before that, many women were forbidden. And the essence of Bhakti is service. And I remember saying to Radhika at the time, oh my God, Radhika, I'm so exhausted. We're supposed to be of service, but my friends need me, my family needs me, my students need me, everybody needs me, and I'm freaking tired. Like, I'm exhausted. Like, how much to be of service before I'm going to break? And he said one thing to me that changed everything. And he told me, Krissi, think of you as a tree. Okay. So if you do not water your roots first, then the fruits that everybody else is going to pick, they're going to be rotten. And it shifted something in me. Before then, I was taking really early morning classes, so I didn't really have my slow mornings and my ability to actually wake myself up. Since he told me that, I cut all of my morning classes. I started to wake early and I started to focus on me first. And then once I focused on me, then I could give more.
Yeah, and that's the lesson for everybody, whether you're a yoga teacher or not.
Yeah.
Definitely. Is this the point where we wrap up the pod?
Yeah, I feel like there's so much in here. There's been so much in here, and there's some real nuggets of wisdom in there, Krissi. So thanks for sharing that with us. I mean, we could definitely do a round 2, round 3, round 4. We'll have you on again.
Yeah, 10 rounds. Yeah, it's just it just for me it just feels very beautiful, because also when you're on the path it does get lonely and isolating. Like, one of the biggest things that I've learned is I'm lonely on this path, because it means that when you start to rip away everything, and when you start to just follow your truth, your harsh truth, it means that you have to step into spaces where people are going to die off, you know? People, your community will change, your friendships will change, the ideas and perspectives of how people see you will change. And then suddenly you can end up feeling like, wow, like am I in this alone? So whenever we come into these spaces, it just makes me realize I'm very grateful to have followed my truth so that people who needs to find me can find me. And then we just realize that even from a distance, we're all together. And that's the beauty of yoga. No, all three of us, we're not even from the same place. We're refugees. We're immigrants right now. We're not even from the same place. But this topic of yoga, it doesn't have to be asana, but just sitting down and talking binds us together. And that gives me hope. Yeah. So ladies, I really just hope that you keep following your truth, the harshness of it, the depths of it. Grip on, because it's a tight ride, and it certainly isn't for the brave. Only the brave really show up. So yeah, just keep spreading it. Keep practicing every day. Do not stop. It gets exhausting and tiring, but it will come back to you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Krissi.
So much. So
I wish you all the luck, Claire, over there in Switzerland. Maybe it's time for me to visit Switzerland.
there we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that we can have all these connections. We've all crossed paths for a reason, and then it's really beautiful. So it's nice to just have this network. So thank you for coming on our podcast, Krissi, and we'll have you on again sometime.
Thank
You're
you.
most welcome, guys. Yeah, thank you everyone for watching, if you're watching. And yeah, let us know if you've got any comments or any questions. But yeah, Switzerland, London, wherever.
And we'll put your details in the show notes and everything so people can find you on socials and things. So thank you so
Always
much.
listen.
Woohoo. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Ciao, ciao.